only mode.
Good morning everybody, welcome to today's webinar. My name's Alex McCutcheon, I'm a Director of Unicom. We're hosting a webinar today. Today's theme is the next stage of HP Application Lifecycle Management. It's subtitled Accelerating Innovation and Industrializing Quality. Our presenter today is Rob Stock, who is Application Solution Consultant at HP. I know Rob has very in-depth technical knowledge about ALM portfolio and also is an expert on HP's latest version of Apps 12. So without further ado, I will hand over to Rob.
Okay, thanks very much, Alec. So good morning, everybody. As Alec said, my name is Rob Stock and I work within our pre-sales group within HP Software. And me and my team look after our applications portfolio, which is effectively what we're here to talk about today. So just to overview this portfolio began life maybe 20 years ago by and enabling testers to understand what was important, where to concentrate effort, and what state a particular application was in with respect to its release. So if you fast forward on from there to the present day, what we're doing is taking those core values and then extending them throughout the whole of the application lifecycle. So to sum this up in one phrase, it's about this: building faster. And it's really about taking that core philosophy of quality and that quality outcome, but also driving velocity through to the whole application lifecycle and the teams of people who contribute to that, to the outcome, and the myriad of different technologies that underlie those particular applications. Now, this application portfolio of ours is designed to manage those different areas. So here in the middle of these different boxes, which underline different tools, we have ALM. So ALM is really the core platform, core management platform to be able to understand how that application delivery is going. Plus, also provide the interface into those different teams, the different teams that underline and need to pull together to be able to drive this application forward. So ALM, what it's really about is this, and this is a great slide to overview exactly what we're talking about here and how it interfaces with those different roles associated to your application delivery. So on the one hand, we've got the traditional quality side of things, the QA department, testing department, assuring the quality of the function, the performance and security across the whole piece, but also then linking into the business analysts. And how do they define what they want in the first place? So somebody defines that they want to embark on a particular business strategy, and by the way, that you need an application then to support it, or you need to change an existing application. What does that actually mean? What are those definitions and those requirements or user stories, whatever they may well be? What is it that you're actually going to deliver? And those people then being able to communicate that back to not just the testing organization, but extend this into the world of development too, to extend that traceability and manage project outcomes. So there's all sorts of different, different tools that developers are using. There's all sorts of different methodologies and all sorts of different metrics which are being developed, but then being able to drive those up throughout the life cycle, so that the business analysts at the one end can actually see how progress is being made on what they've dictated in the first place, and the testers can then understand how that relates to what is actually going to be delivered. And what ALM is doing is it's increasing that velocity whilst maintaining quality. So if you think about it, quality and velocity don't necessarily traditionally sit together. You can do something very fast, and you don't necessarily get a good outcome, or you can spend a whole lifetime trying to get the perfect thing. This is really understanding, those different aspects of application delivery. So you have to realize that application delivery, there are things that you can do faster, but that shouldn't come when you're compromising quality. So one of the examples of this, what ALM is doing, interfacing with the the business analyst community is this. So this is where we are today with the requirements management. So it's enabling business analysts to use these tools directly to input these requirements. And ALM 12 delivers a clean, fresh look and feel that. So manage those requirements, or indeed even or from that, they can extend that to understand what these particular requirements, these requirements that they have are maybe just a couple of lines long, whilst others requirement is actually about not just managing the requirements, but eliciting those things in the first place as they build up and as they develop, as they change versions, and what's the whole story of how that particular requirement developed over time. So we can then define what these requirement types are, define templates to say that when we have a functional requirement or a business requirement, whatever it is, then this is the information that we need to know about it. This is the information which goes together to build that requirement up. So we can understand what requirements are across the board, and they make sense and they're coherent and consistent as to what we're actually trying to develop. So ALM 2 extends down, as I said, to the development world. So Application Lifecycle Intelligence, or ALI, is a core part of ALM, and indeed Agile Manager, which we'll talk about in a second. But the point of this is then to take that philosophy of management and the whole control of your application delivery, through to those different areas. So what ALI is doing is it's aware that there's lots of tools out there, whatever those tools may well be. And whilst HP ourselves, we don't provide development tools, and we've got no intention of providing development tools, but it's given you the ability to link into existing tools that you've got. So on the one hand, if you think about the traditional testing cycle there at the top, this is where testers can interface, and the business analysts can then understand how development is actually progressing. But on the development side, there on the left-hand side, we've got developers using IDEs. So a developer can directly through his IDE can then understand what those requirements are or what those user stories are. So then he can write his code associated with that. He can see what those defects are, which have then been raised by testers directly through his IDE. He doesn't have to log into ALM or Quality Center or anything like that. It doesn't matter whether he's using Windows or Linux or whatever it may well be. Direct through his particular interface, whatever he may well be using, he can then understand what those requirements are. He can also then begin to understand what code it is that he's meant to be working on. One of the things that developers tell us is that when they join a new project, they can spend maybe a whole day just trying to work out what source code that they should be working on, what environments should they be looking at, what requirements, user stories should they be developing to, etc. So a developer from then can open up his IDE, run through a quick wizard, and that will bring up whatever particular task lists or things that he's got to do. Also, we can integrate through to the source code management systems. So as the developer's writing code and things are changing from one day to the next, we can then link into that so that it can give us a view back to the testing world, what's changed. So yesterday, everything was fine. Today, a particular aspect of your application's got a defect. What's changed? Previously, all this stuff had been hidden to the testing world and the business analyst world. But now we can begin to understand what those changes are and report back. And then also integrate back through to build systems. So once we've developed code, once we understand the different source code changes to that, we can then start to produce nightly builds. And what do those builds contain? Are they fixing existing stuff or producing new stuff or whatever it may well be? How does that affect our whole application delivery? And that links through to the reporting side of things. So this is a great example of that. This is a build summary, looking at the different builds there at the top line of bar charts. We've got the different builds over the different days, and we're focused there on one particular build. We've got a couple of charts there on the right-hand side which say how many lines are associated to user storage. So here on this particular one, we've got 767 lines of code which go to build up user stories. We've got defects, which are 66 lines of code. And how much code is then not assigned to anything? How much code is not related to a user story or a requirement or perhaps a defect? So then it can give a view back to testers as to what they're actually looking at. And then under the second line of bar charts there, we're looking at what defects are contained within that in terms of priority. So how much has been fixed as the important bits and pieces that we actually care about as a business. So another view of that is then to look at the iteration content. So what this is telling me here is that based on those different requirements that the business analysts were defining in the first place, how do they relate back to what's being produced? So a good way to look at this is if you think about traditional risk-based testing, really what that's doing is it's looking at what's important to the business and then saying to the testers, well, this is what you need to focus your effort on because it's important to us. So if you think about a scenario of perhaps, your company logo changes from green to blue or something, that's a high priority business requirement. But in terms of testing, there may only be a few lines of code behind it. Perhaps you're testing a website or some application change. There's only a few lines of code behind it, and perhaps a lesser high priority business requirement requires a whole database rewrite at the back end. It's not so important to the business, but there's lots of changes there. So we can see these requirements here. Requirement 37 at the top, high priority. It's got 14 files, 790 lines of code assigned to it. And then right down to the bottom of the top area where we've got requirement 61, which has got 2 files and 242 lines of code. Now, me as a tester, I wouldn't necessarily normally have seen this information. I wouldn't really understand what goes into building up a particular requirement and where should I focus my effort. But that's now telling me, well, one of these requirements has got big changes in it, lots of new code which has been written, all the way down to those which don't have so many changes. So it's giving me a view as to what I should actually focus my testing effort onto. And really allowing people to test the right things. You can't test everything necessarily because there aren't necessarily enough hours in the day or at times within the project, but you can understand what's important. So Agile Manager sits alongside ALM, and Agile Manager, as the name suggests, is about testing within an Agile project and understanding that particular Agile project's release and where it's going, defining the whole setup of the thing. But also this links into ALI, so the development side of things. Now, Agile Manager is a great example of Agile project delivery. So if you go back a couple of years, Agile Manager didn't exist, and we've created it from scratch in a very agile way, and we use Agile Manager to help develop Agile Manager. So what we can do here is we can also link into HP ALM. Now you don't have to use ALM alongside Agile Manager. These two tools can work together or work as standalone environments. But we tend to find that people who are using Agile, nobody tends to go Agile overnight. It's a long process. And certainly when you're talking to larger organizations and they're looking at scaled Agile frameworks, then how does that link into the whole business community, the whole portfolio tracking community, and how do you scale that Agile from a few people in a single room being able to talk to others within their team to scaling it up? Not just, it doesn't have to be worldwide, but most organizations with different offices, people working from home, and all those types of things. How does that begin to cover? So this is where we have the link into ALM. So we can deliver our Agile project, but also understand what those things are, putting them together, exceptional items. Now these are the bullet chunks, so you need to understand what it is that you're trying to do, things that can actually be delivered within a 2-week sprint. So you, the product owners, manage that backlog. You can then say what's important, what's not so important, what we want to be in release 1, how long release 1 is going to take, what period of time, and what needs to fall out of that, and then be a part of release 2 or release 3 or whatever it may well be. But then define what it is that he wants to deliver. We can also then segregate this by different applications. So we're not just looking at the release of an application, but we're also looking at the application itself. So we may well have multiple applications which we're developing, and they've all got their own release timescales. So here, application A's release 1 is from April 15th to the end of May, release 2 beginning of June, etc. So we can define that, and we can understand at one aspect from an application point of view where this application is within its development, but also we can stand back and have a holistic view looking down at all the different applications and how they're important. So this is an example of that. This is the planning board within Agile Manager. So here we're looking at all those different applications. So on the top there, we've got a key to the applications that we're delivering. So the green one there is the movie store, which we're delivering, which is a very kind of Amazon-esque type application which we want to create. We've got the orange one, which is the music store, blue ones for self-provisioning, etc. So we can look back and we can understand where every aspect of this particular application is. And this is all drag and drop. So, you know, we've got at the beginning there, we've got the new column, new things come in. As they're being worked on, they can be moved over to the in progress, in testing, and once we've defined our definition of done for a particular user story, then it can go into the done column. But we can also then, we can filter this. We don't have to look at every application. Perhaps I'm a product owner for just the movie store and I'm just interested in that. And I can filter down on what's important to me based on those particular teams too. We've got the blue, orange and yellow teams down on the left-hand side. Maybe I want to focus in just on the blue team and understand what they're doing. I can then extend that once I've defined my releases, what those applications are, see where we are, moving into the sprint backlog. So we've associated items to a release, we go into a sprint situation, but what's going to be contained within that sprint, what's important, so we can manage those different things. And again, they're down on the right-hand side, you can see the different team members of this particular blue team, what it is that they've got to take on, so we can see how much they're utilized. So we've got a guy, James Horner, there at the top. He's got about 50-odd% utilization. The guy below him, Michael Parker's taken on a load of green things, which are new things, user stories, but he's also got the blue bits there, which are associated to defects. So we can see how he's being utilized too, and enable different team members to also understand their own utilization and where we are within a particular progress of a sprint. So how many days are remaining, how many days have we done. We can then also look at the storyboards. So as items are being moved throughout the different stages, we can see what the state of these particular things are based on the different teams too. And different teams have probably got different ways of working. So the orange team here just has a simple in progress or done, whereas the blue team have got different stages of in progress. Some are waiting validation, some are blocked, some are being reviewed, whatever. We can configure these things very easily to let those different teams work in the different ways that they want to work. And also break these stories down into tasks as they're going through. So particular tasks associated with the stories, how they're doing, development hours remaining. Again, the sprint progress. We can change sprints, so we can look, here we're looking at sprint 4, we can go back to sprint 3 or look ahead to sprint 5. Understand those tasks and the detail associated to the story. Now within ALM too, we have our performance center tools, so performance center and load runner, but also network virtualization. Now this again can be a core part of ALM and link into those things. Performance requirements, for example, are just as important to define as functional requirements or security requirements. You know, what do these things mean? What do we actually need to test and to understand those different tests? One of the great new features of Performance Center and Load Runner and what we're doing today with our latest versions is then being able to utilize cloud-based resources to be able to create tests associated to those different performance things. We've got a number of customers which are doing this already. So the problem is that if you have a performance test to do that's perhaps a bit out of the ordinary, or maybe you don't need to test at all times of the year. Lots of our customers, perhaps, certainly in the retail environment, Christmas is their big time of year. This is when they want to simulate a particular load on their websites for people coming in and using them and buying things for the Christmas period. They don't need this all the time. They don't need this throughout the year, and lots of different organizations have these challenges. So how do they do it, and how do you cobble all this kit together in terms of hardware or whatever it may well be to be able to create these tests? One thing that we can do here directly through Performance Center or Load Runner is then to be able to use our Amazon Cloud account to then go in and provision load generators directly within the cloud. So here I've signed up. I've created some performance hosts. I can define how many hosts I want. I've got a location box there to say that where do I want this to be provisioned throughout the world, whether it's in this country or any other country. But also define the template, so I don't have to go and build these things. I can just say I want this size box, I want a large one, a small one, a medium-sized one, etc. And all these templates are defined straight through Performance Center, and it's just a case of you as a user selecting which particular one you want. Plus also there we can see we've got, this is aligned to an Amazon account, but we're going to align it to all sorts of other different cloud-based providers. So we can say there, if we click on the orange box to say add that batch, and we've created a couple here. So we've got one in the east coast of America, and one in Tokyo. We can say, yep, I'm happy with that, go provision. And that's what it will do. It will go off and provision these load generators for you in those different locations. And once it's done, it comes back and says, everything's okay, and then you're good to go. Those load generators are available to you. You can just go off and ramp them up to the different size of the virtual users that you want to inject into your particular application. One of the things we see around performance testing quite a lot is how the network impacts upon our test. So if you think back, from historically we had LANs and we had WANs, and they have very different characteristics. But when you're coming into the world of mobile devices have got extremely different characteristics, even with its own world. So here we're looking at New York, London, and Tokyo. But the reality is that you don't have to be in New York, London, and Tokyo to get a different mobile signal. You can be, either side of King's Cross Station in London and get very different signals. So, and here, there's nothing particularly shocking about this, that if we're looking at interfacing with an application to a mobile world, we're going to get different performance on a mobile than we would at every stage than we would with a local area network. So when we're testing, when we're performance testing, we need to understand what that network is, what that impact is that we're having on those different environments. So this is a network test here where I'm saying as a tester I want 66 transactions a minute. I can sign up 10 virtual users, produce my transactions, and everything's fine. That's my performance test. But then when we introduce a mobile network to it, because everything's slower, we've seen that it's slower, we know that it's slower as a user, but those transactions are then a lot longer. So we end up not getting 66 transactions a minute, which is what we originally wanted. We only end up getting 22 transactions a minute. So we were not really testing what we wanted to test in the first place, because we need to take account of what that network is. And the reality is, if I actually wanted to do that in this particular scenario, if I wanted to test those 66 transactions a minute, then I'd actually need around 32 virtual users, because those transactions are a lot longer, because there's a lot more concurrency between what we're doing. It basically means that the server is having to do more things at once than it would have done in the world of the LAN. So we need to take those things into account. So our network virtualization tool here lets you define those different places. Where do you want to test based on real data imported directly from the network virtualization database? You can define it manually, or perhaps you can replay a network profile to actually understand those things. We've got a good number of customers too, which have done performance testing and found that when they're testing with a local area network, then it's completely different when it comes down to a mobile network or a slower network, whatever that network may well be. Business process testing, where we are now with it, is business process testing has been around a good number of years, but it's now to a point where it's really tightly integrated into the different testing tools at one hand and ALM on the other side. So the whole concept of this is to minimize change within your application or within your tests pointing to change in that application. So if you think here at the top, we've got create purchase order. We log in, we create a purchase order, etc. So we log out. When we delete a purchase order, or test deletes a purchase order, we're just going through the same elements, but maybe we're adding a couple new bits. So what business process testing does is it lets you create a library of components, so that when your application changes, you just need to change that one component that then points to 50 different tests or 500 different tests, whatever it may well be. Minimizing change and effort that you need to do, whether it's a manual world, whether you've defined these tests within, step one, do this, expected result, whatever it may well be, or whether it's throughout the automated world. And business process testing, like I say, links in tightly to these two main areas of testing tools. So UFT and Sprinter. Unified Functional Testing is for automated testing, and Sprinter is for manual testing. Sprinter was introduced within Quality Center and ALM version 11, we're currently at version 12, and what that does is it gives you a whole set of tools to be able to run your manual tests. But as I said before, we're talking about velocity and maintaining quality, and the one thing that traditional manual testing doesn't do is give you velocity. It may well give you quality, but that's where Sprinter comes in. So at the top there, we've got two aspects: whether we're planning a test, whether we're building the test, writing the test in the first place, or whether we're running, managing the audit, managing what we've done. If we're exploratory testing, then what have we done throughout that exploratory testing? Lots of people tell us that they can click around on an application in an exploratory way and find a defect, but then not remember how they got to that defect in the first place. So Sprinter is a whole tool set to be able to allow you to be able to speed up that manual testing. UFT, or Unified Functional Testing, came from two tools. So Quick Test Professional, for those that remember that, or QTP, and a tool called Service Tests. And they've been now amalgamated together to be able to produce the one thing, the one tool, UFT, which gives you the GUI and the API automated testing across browsers. And the one thing that's new about a lot of these, or the main thing that's new, is that technology moves on, whatever that technology may well be. So it's about these tools being able to support today's technology, not just the technology from many years ago. So all sorts of new technology enhancements, what these can understand, what they can recognize. From the mobile world, we're not just talking about interfacing with the traditional My Computer type application. We've got to be cognizant that we want to perhaps run automated or manual tests with Sprinter and UFT across mobile devices. So what we do is we interface through to a managed cloud to be able to, and these things are basically racks of all sorts of different mobile devices that you can dedicate to yourself through a private cloud or or you can use those in the public cloud, secure access to these things, and tightly integrated to the testing tools. So you can specify what devices you want, whether they're phones, tablets. You can upload your applications through to them, and testing native or web applications on your mobile. So here's an example of that through UFT, Unified Functional Testing. I've opened through my account, which I've got to the cloud providers there, and it's given me a whole load of phones which are applicable to me, iPhones and Android devices, etc. And then I can pick which one I want to do, or pick multiple ones that I want to run tests on, and be able to build my tests up, but not just be able to build tests associated to one phone or one device, but be able to produce a test that's going to run across multiple devices, multiple operating systems, and multiple screen sizes, whatever those may well be, and not have to replay and rekey those different tests. Service virtualization then links tightly into not just ALM, but also the testing tools, so Load Runner, Performance Center, etc., to be able to take account of what we want to test that we can't necessarily get our hands on. So if you think about your application under test that we've got here, this is your little test environment that you've set up with a single sign-on, a couple of application servers, etc. But the reality is that there's other things that your application needs to hook into, be they mainframes, databases, third-party systems, whatever they may well be. And some of those aren't available to you. Mainframes you can only access within the small hours of the morning, or databases, customer databases, which there's no way you're going to be allowed to get your hands on, etc. So how do you manage those things? And how do you keep development and test moving forward without compromising the quality of the application? This is all about the shifting left, being able to test early. You're producing code, understanding how that code is actually working in real life. So what we can do with service virtualization then is to be able to design, learn, and simulate what they are. So here we've got a pictorial view of our application under test at the top, and down at the bottom we've got different systems that we want to access and we want to start to test. So we can use service virtualization to design, learn, and simulate those things. Simulate not just in terms of what they do, but what the different performance characteristics of these different services may well be. So then really that interfaces to those different teams as we started talking about in the first place. So developers, they're getting quick and easy access to those applications, the components which maybe aren't finished, which they can't get their hands onto. If you think of a simple example like buying something off of Amazon, if you think of all the different processes that needs to go through, whether it's shipping, whether it's payment functions, or whatever it may well be, they can start to understand how those different components fit into the application that they're building. And functional testers too can start working earlier, so they can create and execute tests much earlier. They can understand what those test results are a lot quicker, coming back to the velocity thing, and model whatever back-end functional behavior that may well be, whether it's different transactions going through based on different prices or different characteristics. But also importantly too, the performance tester can start to get involved and understand how those services actually are going to impact your application. So maybe your application is interfacing to a third-party service. Maybe somebody's given you an SLA of 2 seconds that you'll get a response back. If that SLA goes out, maybe it's 3 seconds, maybe it's 4 seconds, then what's that going to do to your application? Are you going to get timeouts within your application? And maybe it comes back with the results a lot quicker. Does that mean to say that you're going to get buffer overflows within your application? So you can start to model that and start to understand how these things will behave actually within reality. So like I say, that was a whistle-stop overview of our HP application portfolio. What I'd like to do now is open up to questions if anybody's got any. So I can see one here, it's saying, so I was talking about ALI, and the question is connecting to different development environments. What sort of systems do we connect to out of the box? Well, out of the box, ALI connects to a whole range of different things. So I was talking about build traceability, understanding what the traceability of the different build systems are. So we support things like Hudson, Jenkins, CloudBees, Team Foundation Server, etc. For source code management, traceability, understanding how source code changes. We're looking at Subversion or CVS, again, Team Foundation Server or Perforce, etc. And plugins for IDEs, well, that's IntelliJ, Eclipse, or Visual Studio. Probably the best thing to do is, you know, some of these those links that I've put throughout this can be made available, so you can understand and go out and look at the complete details of some of these things, which we don't have time to cover here. Another question here. So talking about on-premise solutions, yeah. So all these solutions which I talked about there are on-premise solutions, but they're also available as SaaS, so things like ALM, that can be SaaS delivery, Performance Center, Agile Manager. They can all be delivered in a SaaS way. Some of them, you know, things like Sprinter are a desktop tool, but you can interface with these things, and we've got many customers who do that based on a SaaS setup. Okay, so just looking at some of these other questions. We've got one here. It says, Agile Manager. Okay, Agile Manager is looking quite interesting. Is there any trial versions available? Yes. So timely question. So Agile Manager and some of our other tools too is available on pronk.com. So Pronk is our HP software portal for various different tools that we have. So if you want to go to Pronk, you can look at Agile Manager. You can sign up for trial versions with or without data, which you can understand and look at too. Another question here: how Sprinter license? Oh, Sprinter. So Sprinter is for, as I said, manual testing. So Sprinter is core part of ALM or Quality Center. So if you have Quality Center or ALM beyond or from version 11 onwards, then you can go to the add-ins page and start using Sprinter. And Sprinter's licensed just in the same way as the ALM and Quality Center are. So it's a concurrent model. Like I say, it's part of Quality Center and ALM. There's no additional cost. And if you've got Quality Center open, you're consuming a license. If you've got Sprinter open at the same time, you're still just consuming that one license. So let's just have a look at the slides available for use. So yes, I think this is, as Alec will probably mention in a second, these are parts of going to be recorded. So the recording of this will be put available. Also, someone's asking, oh, how do I spell Pronk? So that's P-R-O, it should be there on the screen, P-R-O-N-Q.com, which is, like I say, it's an HP available for people to look at those different features of Agile Manager and various other different tools too. Plus also there's another link here which is probably relevant for people to look at the different tools and where you can find out more information from this high-level overview. So the tools available there, but also if you go to our software websites, you can download unlimited time versions of tools like LoadRunner, etc., with a whole range of different protocols available to you. So I think with that, sorry, there's one more here. Is there info somewhere available on licensing all part of the current use? Yes, so again, great resource to go and look at the different licensing versions of these tools is this slide here to be able to understand how they're all different licensed. They are all concurrent. Things like UFT, etc., can be individual use. But yeah, that's all available on these web addresses. And also, if you know, we've obviously got a list of people, you know, that part of this course. So we obviously going to be contacting everybody directly to give you more information. If you want, the slide set's available for that. Just ask, and we can forward those things on to you. So I think from here, we've come to the end of the questions that I can see. Okay, one more question actually has come in. Which large corporations use this product? Well, in terms of people using this, then we have, a whole range. I mean, I think we, talk about, the top banks in the world through to, some of the smaller organizations. Some people are happy doing publicity for us, companies like Specsavers here within the UK. They've done a certain amount of publicity in how they use our tools, but we have people testing jet engines with these tools all the way through to, perhaps smaller mobile applications which are being delivered. So it's a huge range. And, in terms of the question, which large corporations use this product, it's probably difficult to think of a large corporation that doesn't use this product. I guess is the easiest way to answer that. So with that, I think I'd like to pass back to you, Alec.
Thank you very much, Rob. Well, thanks everybody for joining. And just to reiterate what Rob mentioned during the webinar, we will be making a recording available. What we'll do is email everybody very shortly over the next 24 hours or so with a link to the recording. So, of course, you're very welcome to watch the webinar again or of course, share it with colleagues and associates. We hope you found today useful. And again, thank you very much, Rob, for a very informative webinar.